a couple of other people trying to get onto the meeting. So I'm trying to get them in. Okay. Let's hold on one sec. Let's go back to participants. You can see me right now, Shirley?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. All right, gang. So let's get it going. We are live. We are rocking and rolling. And I'm going to go through kind of an overview of what the next year is going to bring. So we're recording now. We're going to do a new class that's going to go 10 months. And I'm going to teach you again, like we did last year, but naturally I learned from the last year's training class, some of the things that I think could be tightened up or done a little bit better. So what we're going to do is go over really tight. I'm going to teach you how to get sellers. Okay. A lot of you guys are always asking, how do you get sellers? How do you get sellers? Where are the sellers? What's the process? And we went over that last year, but we're going to do it again this year. But I'm going to really go through this step by step of how do you attract sellers to your database. And then once you get there, how do you convert them and how do you get listings? I've been doing this process have refined my selling process for literally, over a decade of really committing to a good seller process. I am usually good for about 100 seller listings a year. Honestly, I could do 200 seller listings to 250 as one person. That's the capacity. You might be able to get up to 300, but then what ends up happening over time, like if you're doing 200 transactions in a year. So I want you to think of this like big picture, right? These are big numbers, kind of like number one in mass. It'll put you in the top 100 in the country. But to think about the process that it takes to get here, if you're selling 200 listings in a year, you basically every weekday, 4 days a week, you are closing a home. Okay. So basically a Monday you're closing home, a Tuesday you're closing a home, Wednesday, Thursday, you're closing 4 days a week. It's a lot. And so there's a mindset in there's a process that you have to go through. So the first is you could just do sellers. All right. And that takes time. And it's the most efficient time that you can do as an agent because you can control your time. Right? When you're a seller's agent and you're just a seller's agent, you don't have to run around on Tuesday night. You don't have to run around on Saturday or Sunday. But the process of attracting sellers is very different. And I'm going to teach you that over the course of the year. We're going to spend a lot of time on how to get sellers. Where do you find them? How do you get in front of them? What do you say to them? How do you convert them? And what does that process look like, soup to nuts? Now, being a seller's agent is different than being a buyer's agent, and it's different than being a rental agent, and it's different than doing management. I look at the different categories that we're going to go over as actually separate businesses, okay? A lot of times we don't think about this. When you're an agent and you're out and you're like, I got some leads and I'm running a buyer, I'm running a listing. But the truth is you need to think about this as your own separate business, that you're selling business is a business unto itself. You're the entrepreneur at the very top of this, okay? And underneath you is a selling process that you need to invest in. You need to put time in. You need to create a process around it. Then you have a buyer component of your business where you need to have a process in place. You need to know how are you getting your leads? How are you servicing your leads? What's the transaction paperwork process like? That's business too. If you do a rental business, like we do a huge rental business in management, but our rental business is a different business. It's a different flow. How we get the leads is very different. How we service those leads is similar but different. And then any other aspects of the business that you're doing are really separate businesses. Okay. The seller side of your business is you the seller side, and then underneath, there are these prongs that you need to get right. So if you think of yourself at the top of the hub, if we have an org chart, this is you. Underneath you, business one, seller business. Underneath the seller business is lead generation. So how do we develop the lead generation under the seller business? Prong two is lead conversion. That after we get the leads in, now that we have them, how do we convert them? How do we get them to sign contracts with us? Then prong three under the sellers is seller servicing. How do you service the seller from the beginning to the end of the transaction in a way where the process feels really seamless, that it feels like it's done really well, and that they feel like they're really getting a high level of customer service? And in order to do that the right way without hiring a bunch of people is automation, using your CRM the right way, drip email campaigns, drip text campaigns, drip video campaigns to your client, direct messaging. Hey, congratulations, we just got an offer. Hey, home inspection's coming up, so that you don't have to do that. You could click a button, or if you have an admin at some point, they could click the button for you. Okay. So on the seller side of the business, you need to commit to this process. In that business, it's like you coming to me and saying, hey, I want to open a restaurant and I want to open a gas station. These are different businesses. The seller business is a different business than the buyer business. But yeah, Chris, we're in real estate, and people want to buy and sell. They are. But how you get sellers, how you convert sellers, how you manage sellers, very little of that is going to duplicate with your buyer sellers. Where you get your leads from your buyers is different than how you're going to get them from your sellers. How you service the buyers is different than how you have to service your sellers. You don't have to run around for sellers. You don't have to set appointments on homes and do all that. Okay. So you need to really get into your head that you are an entrepreneur, that being a real estate agent is somebody that is an independent contractor that is really running their own business. And there are these different pillars that we want to work on so that we can get to a point where our different businesses are running without us. Okay. And what do I mean by that? Where most of your back-end process should be automated properly, so the administrative tasks takes the least amount of time. Okay. So we're going to cover that over the next year and a bunch of other cool stuff. I think when I look back over the past year, what we did with the training, if you really committed to it, and I committed to the trainings that I did with you guys, I actually went through it step by step and executed on each task, each class assignment that we did every time. And it, for me, resulted in a lot of good results, but more importantly, a process that's really good and really tight. The seller side of my business is much more enhanced because I went through that process with you guys. I tightened up my lists. I tightened up the way that I'm targeting the new people. I have the blogs and the websites tight so that now I can communicate. That system is now in place. We're going to go over it again for another year. We're going to spend an entire year going through this again. So if you're an agent sitting out there and you're saying, how do I get my seller business going? This is going to teach you step by step. Now, this is no different than exercising. If you want to be a bodybuilder, you know it's not a very complicated process. You got to eat certain foods, you got to lift certain weights. And yeah, there's certain things we could do to kind of do tricks of the trade to maybe get us a little better, maybe some water, when we time at the competitions. But at the end of the day, it's not incredibly hard to become a bodybuilder, but it's a lot of discipline. It's a lot of discipline, and it's a lot of putting in the time day in and day out. It's not a difficult process to figure out, well, how do I get into shape? It's just, are you committed to that process and do you follow it? This is the very same thing. Getting a lot of listings is not a complicated process, but it's a process that requires that day-to-day effort and sometimes doing things that you do not want to do. That is a listing process, okay? With the buyer process, I really want to work with you guys to not just teach you how to get more buyers, but to teach you how to service them the right way in eliminating your time. Now, listen, one thing is with 100% certainty, you can sell more homes in business one under the listing business than you can under process two, the buyer business, if you're one person. And the question is, well, why is that? Because when you sell, most of your time is spent on lead generation. And then when you finally get the seller, that appointment can take 1 hour, and then it's administrative paperwork after that contract is signed. On the buyer side, however, that process with a client on average is going to take you 30 to 40 hours of taking them around before they actually get an offer accepted on average. And some have taken 100 hours and some have taken less. We've all gotten lucky and gotten somebody in the first shot and we love it. But on the averages, it's going to be between 30 and 40 hours of a buyer time taking them around. So just by a function of your time, if we know that we could do a listing appointment in an hour, we got to figure out how much lead generation time does it take to get them. And then on the buyer side, if we know every buyer is going to take 30 to 40 hours of servicing at a minimum, then the question is, how much time does it take to get the leads in so that we can service them? But if you did the math, you would say, hey, you could do a listing appointment 3 a day, 4 a day without a problem. But the question is, how do you get in front of that many? But you would have a hard time servicing 3 to 4 buyers a day just because of the time components, okay? Not to say you couldn't take them out, but if every person's taking 30 to 40 hours, just start to do the math on a weekly basis of, okay, if it's 30 to 40 hours a buyer, if we start saying we do 52 buyer deals a year, we're basically at a full work week. Now, there's some things that we can do to double that in terms of time, and that's what I'm going to teach you how to do. And we did this last year, but I'm going to go through it really tight and succinctly so that you understand, just like this business, you're at the top, okay? You are the entrepreneur, and under the buyer leg, we have these legs, and one leg is lead generation. How do we get the buyer leads? Then the next is lead conversion. How do we convert the leads that we have? Okay. And then the third piece, let me just fix my screen. 1 second, guys. So that third piece that we're looking at is how do we have a process of managing the buyer side process so that it's really tight. Does that make sense? And so if you are out there and you're saying to yourself, I don't really have my real estate business going, I can't figure out how to get it off the ground, I'm going to walk you through again this year, step by step, how to do it. Because if you do it, you can do as much business as you want to do. You just have to be willing to take the steps necessary to get you there, okay? And I can say this with certainty because it's how I built my own business. I started without anybody in this business. I came from a different career. I was a lawyer, and I was doing real estate on the side. So I had to go through this process of figuring out, I know a lot of people, but how do I convert all this into business? How do I get my business to a level that I want, where I'm making the kind of money that I want so I can enjoy the kind of freedoms in my life that I want? And that is a process that has taken, a long time. I mean, well over 15 years, closer to 20 years, maybe even more. But along the way, you learn these certain patterns of behavior, and you learn the secret sauce of what can allow you to go from 0 to 10 deals, to 20 deals, to 50 deals, to 100 deals, 150 deals. I've done all that. And so I know step by step how to get you there. But listen, last year when we trained, the reality is I look, and not a lot of the agents in our organization do the trainings. They don't come to the trainings. And then they'll ask me the very same questions in a meeting with them. And they'll say, hey, how do I get sellers? How do I get more buyers? That's what this is for. Then we're going to organize this very tightly for you. We're going to organize it in Vimeo, which is a video software program that we're using, which we did last year, but we swapped halfway, so it's a little bit cluttered. We're going to put them in Facebook, but we're going to organize them in the Facebook group so that you could go through course 1, course 2, course 3, course 4, so that through the year you can say, all right, seller lead, all the videos are here, buyer leads, all the videos are here, rental leads, all the videos are here. Okay. And then what we want to do after that is, I'm opening this up too. These are also going live to our YouTube page so that anybody in the organization can go to our YouTube page. So we're going to have them in 3 spots. Okay. I suppose the thing that I probably have overlooked, and I'm evolving just like you are, but I think what I've overlooked is the amount of training that I have personally gone through over these past 2 decades. That, you know, people often will see the statistics or the numbers or the money, but I look at all of that as really part of trainings that I have gone through, like hundreds and hundreds of them, in trial and error, going to the training, taking the data, giving it a shot. This whole process is taking a lot of time to get here. But honestly, the training is what has enabled the success. By learning from other people how to do things a certain way has made this process work. And I think the thing for me, so you watching can get a better understanding, is because I have legal training as a background as a lawyer, one of the components of being a lawyer and a license is you got to figure it out. When you're a lawyer, people come to you to solve their problems, and you get a lot of different data, different facts, different circumstances, different situations. And then you have to figure out how to convey your argument to usually a third party, a mediator, or a judge, and argue in court. In real estate, it's a little different. So people give you all of this data. You can go to all these different places. It's like, you know, trainings like I like Mike Ferry, you know, got a prospect, Tom Ferry, you got to get on social media, Ryan Serhant, $1 million listing. We got to do social media. I mean, there's just thousands of people bombarding us with different tips and techniques. I think what I do well is I take all of this data and I synthesize the data into, okay, this worked, but this didn't work. This makes sense. This doesn't make sense. This is too expensive. This is affordable. And I broke that down into my own system that at the end of the day, these are things that work and are not terribly affordable. Now, I'm not saying you can't spend a lot of money. If you came to me and said, hey, I've got $1 million and I want to get this thing rocking at a high level, I could teach you how to do that. But if you're the new agent or you're an agent at 10, 20 deals, 30 deals, you can get to 100 deals really without spending a lot of money. You don't have to spend any ads on Zillow. You don't have to spend any ads on Realtor. You can if you want to. It'll make it easier in some regards. But there's a lot of free ways to get leads. And that's what I want you to be thinking about. Okay. So as we go through this course over the next year, we're going to start again about getting organized. But what we're going to do next week is we're going to go over goal setting, because I think the clarity of what you want to achieve really determines everything else. Let me say that again. I think the clarity of what you want to achieve is going to determine everything else. And what do I mean by that? There are agents that are going to watch this that are going to want to do 200 transactions. And there are agents that are watching this that are going to want to do 2 transactions or 5 transactions. And while the process is similar to move forward with our goals, what you have to do will depend upon what that total goal is. You're not going to have to do everything if you don't want to do 200 deals. Does that make sense? By getting really clear about what you want to do, it makes things a lot easier because you're not running around chasing a squirrel with this lack of clarity. So what I do every year is I really go through this extensive goal setting process. We're going to do that next week, and it's going to be like all day if you want to participate. But to really get clear on what we want to do in terms of the next year, what the next year is going to look like at the end of the year. How much money are we going to make? How many deals are we going to make? How many followers on social media are we going to have? How many marketing campaigns did we run? How many email I mean, I'm talking very clearly specific about exactly what we're going to do. If you do that, you are going to have the success you want if you follow through. So what do I mean by this? You know, one of the things this year that I'm going to be focused on is my own health, right? Because sometimes I don't care what level of success you have. If you're highly successful in one area, you're usually deficient in another area because you're spending so much time, energy, and effort to be successful at one thing. Okay. But if you set a goal that I want to lose 10 pounds over the next 12 months, that is a great goal that you wrote down. And some people would say, like, the secret, that's enough. You write it down and it will manifest itself. But the truth is, that's not true. You have to say, I'm going to lose 10 pounds. And specifically, how am I going to get there? What does my day look like? What do I eat? Where do I go? Where do I walk? How often do I walk? How often do I run? Do I have to lift weights? Should I not lift weights? By getting clarity on exactly what you want, it's going to help decide the training program that you need to get there. Now, everybody has to do similar things, whether they want to lose 10 pounds or 100 pounds. But that goal is going to make a difference on the intensity, the effort, how much you walk, how much you eat, where you eat. Okay. So these are important. Okay. Know your GPS. I just got a chat. I don't know who that's from. But either way. So getting that tight is the important first step. And so it is a key definer on what you do and how many hours. I am a big prospector in this business. And so when I go over my goals of listing, a big part of my program, and it doesn't have to be for you, but a big program for me is how many listing calls am I going to take in a 1-year period? That is fully decided by the number of transactions that I want to do. And this year I'm on track. Last year I hit it. I exceeded my goal by, I think, 2. This year it's close, but I'll hit it because I know my number. And when I start to say, all right now I'm at 96 deals. Okay. But I got like 12 pendings. So I need to get like 10 more deals. So as I'm sliding down a little, I got to pick up my activity, right? I got to say, I got to call more. I got to get more listings. I got to fight to get more market share. That's simply decided by the goal that I set and I'm chasing. If I had no goal, yeah, I'd still do a lot of business, but I wouldn't know when to kick on the jets. I wouldn't know when to pull back because I don't have the clarity. Does that make sense? So you really want to go through to set your goals, and then you can apply this at the certain levels of where you are. Okay. Now listen, this is the thing I can promise you. If you don't follow through with any of these assignments, you're not going to have any success. If you check into this once and then you lose it for 4 or 5 weeks and then you come back, you're not going to have any success. If you can't give the consistency to the training, you're never going to be able to apply the consistency to your own sales business. Let me say it again. If you can't apply the consistency to the training, you're not going to be able to apply the consistency to your own sales business. If you're not able to do a weekly training call with somebody who's teaching you exactly how they went from 0 to number 1 in the state, do you really think that you're going to put any effort into your sales business? That's what you need to be thinking about. The people that are going to succeed at this are not just going to come to the training. They're going to apply it at the levels that they need to apply it so that they can hit their goals. Now, there's an interesting study that came out in terms of the number of real estate agents that are leaving the industry within 6 months. Okay. And so there's a 6-month study, a 9-month study, and a 12-month study. And pretty much the number that just came out, I read it last week, was 92% of all agents are gone by 6 months, And within 12 months, 98% of all new agents are gone. Think about that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah. Like a GPS, Mark was saying, like your goal, it's a GPS telling you where you want to go. That's a great point. And it's exactly right. Right. I mean, you'll go somewhere if you're driving, but if you know where you want to go. So some of you have other jobs. And so you haven't hit bottom because you're not in a way where it's as urgent to succeed, right? You might have a full-time job and you're kind of doing this part-time, but for the people that have come in and they've hit the ground running full-time, gone at it, 98% of them will be gone in 1 year. 98% of them. It's a staggering. And when the license renewals come up, 75% of people never even renew their license after the first time. So think about that. All these people set a goal to become a real estate agent. They become a real estate agent. They try it, they drop out, and then they don't even renew their license and they're never to be heard from again. And the question is why? Why does that happen? And it's a lack of training and it's a lack of commitment to do the job that you need to do by applying the training to your business. Okay. So what I'm going to do is give you my all. I'm going to give you my A game. I give you every secret that I know. I give you every insider trick that exists. There isn't any other magic formula out there to teach you how to get the leads on the seller side and to teach you how to get the leads on the buyer side and to teach you how to get the leads on the rental and management side if you want to do that. And I know nobody likes to do rentals and there's good reason for that, but that's the reality. I'll teach you how to do that on all 4 fronts. Okay. Then after we get all of these leads in, I'm going to teach you how do you convert them on the sales side, on the buy side, on the rental side. What do you say? What are the forms? How do you close them? Okay. Even how do you do it on the phone? Like, how do you get, for a lot of you who haven't prospected, when I was 18 years old, I got a job at a telemarketing center. And I went in the first day and they didn't give you a lot of training. And you got on the phones and they gave you the pay scale. Okay. They're like, all right, 0 deals. See, like 1 deal, you're making like $15. If you could get people to sign up for a Visa or a MasterCard, $15, $15. But you could make in this job at the time, like 200 grand. And I was like, okay, let's go, right? 200 grand, you're 18 years old. I mean, this is at a time when 200 grand was like, whoa. And I would get on the phone and it was like, the phone would ring. Hello? Hi, it's Krista. And they'd hang up on you. And then I'd call all night. And in the night, I'd look at the board and I'm like, I got 0. And inevitably, there was some guy who had 20. He had 20. And I'm like, you had 20 people sign up for a credit card tonight? That was my first day. He's like, well, yeah, I do that every night. I said, how? I just was on the phone doing what you were doing, calling, and everybody hung up on me, or I couldn't get anybody to convert. I couldn't get anybody to sign up with me. So here was a guy sitting right next to me in the same call center at the same job, making 200 grand. And I was lucky if I could pull off 15 grand. But what I learned is that calling in a telemarketing industry, which is what we do if you're a sales prospector, is there's a lot of technique involved in getting people to engage in conversation and get them from the phone to a face-to-face appointment. Just like you, I could be in the room with you and say, hey, Doherty's doing 200 deals a year. And I was that kid that was doing 0 next to the guy who was getting 20 credit apps. He was unbelievable to me. He was on the thing. You get me as like, eh. And the other thing is people would be listening. So I wasn't just on, they had somebody that was the manager of the call center, and the manager of the call center was listening to all of the telephone calls. And then they'd be like, okay, like what's going on here? You're just screwing this up, kid. Get in here. Let's try to. And over time, you learned that telemarketing was a skill. that the better you got, that the more you practice, that the more you learn, that you got better at the calls. And at the end of the day, I was that 20 person a day caller at 18 years old. And it's probably 19 and a half, to be honest. It took time, but learning specifically how to get good and learning that technique and system day in and day out resulted in a huge income disparity. Okay. But it was sticking with it, listening to people who knew what they were doing, practicing, dealing with a huge amount of rejection. I can't tell you how many people told me to, you know, to go somewhere else in the world, right? To go to some alternate universe. But I learned something very important at that time. And that was the difference in people, that we could both be in the same room. We could both sit at the same cubicle. I might even sit at that person's cubicle some nights. We would both have the same headset. We'd both have the same phone system. We both had the same opportunity, but yet somebody was making 200,000 and I was making nothing. And that's what I'm going to teach you to do. If you want to commit to it, is how are you the person that makes the money? How are you the person that succeeds? And what are those steps and techniques that the people that are making the money are doing? That's what I'm giving you. So I want you to commit to this, okay? This is a process that is going to, it's going to take time and commitment from you, but I really want you to follow through and do it. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. If you engaged in the last class, you could ask yourself, have you followed through yet? If you were in the last class, did you set up your own video blog? Have you been consistently doing videos? Have you been prospecting your seller list? Have you ever pulled the seller's list? Have you ever pulled the likely buyer list? Have you done any Facebook and social media paid campaigns? If the answer to that is no, then you didn't implement a lot of the trainings. Now, some of you, I get it, are like, well, I want to take this and I want to take that. And that's okay too. That's okay too. I mean, that's what I've done my entire career. I've taken all of these different training courses and been, I would fly to Las Vegas for training courses, Florida, and I would synthesize the data so I got my own plan. But I would always try what they gave me and be like, this isn't working for me. I'm not seeing results here, but I'm seeing it here. And I was always driven by two things. How do I do this affordably, so I'm not spending tons of money? And do I get the result in the return? Okay. Now, this is for the agent that wants to be their own solo agent. Not all of you want to be a solo agent on your own, and you don't have to. That's why we give leads to people. Okay. That is it's a training that is part of this, where it's more of, you don't have to worry about lead conversion. You just have to worry about lead servicing. But guess what? When you get the leads, that's why you get less of a split, because we often are paying on what we're teaching you. We're doing that. We're absorbing the risk. We're absorbing all that cost. So the agent gets the lesser split, and we have that available. But what I'm teaching you to do is the whole kit and caboodle, the whole kitchen sink. How do you do it all on your own if you want to do it? Okay. And so if you guys have any questions, this today was really just the preview of what we're going to be doing over the next year. I'm going to send the training course out to everybody. We are doing great in our market. We have been in a chase for first place in Lowell. We've been in a chase for third place and second place in Chelmsford. We've been ranking in Tewksbury in the top 5. I mean, basically all over Greater Lowell, we are in a fight for first place. And that's pretty amazing considering that we're a small organization like we are. But the reason that we have this kind of success is we are committed to the training, that we're training our people who are coming in, that they have some skills and they're doing 25, 30 deals. I mean, look at the performance levels of the people that we have. Look at Sandra Bucher, who just passed 10 million in sales. Look at Shirley Kunico, how much business she's doing. Look at Debbie Doherty, how much transactions she's doing on a yearly basis. Look at Dana Wang, who went from a team who's now crushing it in terms of her numbers, who's also just about to pass 10 million in sales. Danielle Garner has been crushing it in her business. over 15 sales over the last 12 months. Eleanor Connors, who's been 20 years in the business, is now getting up to that $10 million mark in sales. And it goes on and on. And the question is why and how. It's meeting with them and saying, all right, this is what we got to tweak this. Try to do this. Now, you have to decide at the end of the day how much business you really want to do. It doesn't make sense to push you to 100 deals if you want to do 5. It doesn't make sense to push you to 50 deals if you want to do 20. Be happy with the goal you set and seek to meet it. So that's today. We're going to have a leads meeting for people that want to be in the leads program. We're in the process of that. We set up the new Agent Assist program, which is a program for other agents who will get paid to do open houses, home inspections. So for those of you that don't have a team and you don't need a team, you can hire people. Say, all right, I want somebody to do the open house. This is the fee structure, and I keep the leads in the business because I'm paying them. Okay. I want somebody to do a home inspection. We're going to pay this agent, and any agent could participate in that. And a lot of agents are. It's just a way to make some extra cash, or if somebody has a free time on a Saturday and Sunday. But that Agent Assist program is working out very well right now. We get a lot of agents that are covering each other, and everybody's happy because some agents are making money when they're doing the work, and then other agents are getting to free up some of their time. We've got we're rolling out a new lead program and how we do that. So we've been working on that for like the last 60 days. It's been a ton of work. So we're getting that piece tight to help you guys. And we're working on a new transaction program for those of you that want that full transaction experience. You'll have to pay for it, but we'll have a transaction person that will, if you want it, will do your transactions kind of beginning to end. They'll do everything for you. Okay. So we're spending a lot of time hearing what your wants and your needs are and doing what we can to address them so that you can do more deals or get more time. Okay. So that's what I want to talk about today, is getting you ready for the next year, getting your mindset right, getting your thought process in place so that we can get this party started and take on the new year with everything we got. Thanks, guys.